Some people spend their whole lives searching for true love. William Carter found it, but the woman he loved never let him close enough to touch her heart. For 3 years, William had been married to Chloe Hart, the youngest billionaire CEO in the country. To the outside world, they were the perfect power couple. Handsome husband, beautiful CEO wife, a luxurious mansion, a life everyone envied. But behind the closed doors of Hart Manor, they lived like strangers. Their marriage had begun as a contract. William had agreed to become Chloe's husband when his family desperately needed financial help. He never expected anything in return. Not love, not affection, not even a smile. Yet, as the years passed, he quietly fell in love with a woman everyone feared. Chloe was known throughout the business world as the Ice Queen. Calm, brilliant, untouchable. She never raised her voice. She never showed her emotions. And she never allowed anyone to get too close. Not even her own husband. Still, William never stopped caring for her. Every morning, he made her breakfast. Every evening, he waited for her to come home. And every anniversary, he secretly hoped she would finally look at him the way a wife looks at the man she loves. But that day never came. Or so he believed, because neither William nor Chloe knew that someone had been watching them from the shadows. Someone who wanted William dead. And fate was about to play a cruel game. A single accident, a single lie, would change their marriage forever. The moment Chloe believed William had forgotten the last 3 years of his life, she would finally show him the love she had hidden all along. But by then, the people who wanted him dead had already made their first move. Chapter 1. The morning sun peeked through the windows of Hart Manor as William Carter stood quietly in the kitchen. Like every morning for the past 3 years, he prepared breakfast before Chloe came downstairs. A cup of black coffee, whole wheat toast, a vegetable omelet. Simple, just the way she liked it. A few moments later, Chloe appeared, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit. She looked elegant as always, her expression calm and unreadable. Without saying a word, William placed the coffee in front of her. "You have a board meeting at 9, he said with a warm smile. "Traffic will be heavy, so you should leave a little early." Chloe glanced at the clock before taking a sip of her coffee. "Thank you." 2 simple words. Yet William treasured every one of them. As Chloe stood to leave, William picked up an umbrella from beside the door. "It's supposed to rain this afternoon." She accepted it with a small nod. "Take care of yourself." "I will." For a brief moment, their eyes met. Then Chloe turned and walked toward the waiting car. William watched until the gates closed behind her. Only then did he whisper with a faint smile, "Maybe one day, you'll come home because you want to see me." An hour later, William left the mansion to deliver a donation to a children's charity he had quietly supported for years. The weather changed quickly. Dark clouds covered the sky, and heavy rain began pouring over the city. As William waited to cross a busy intersection, he noticed a little girl chasing her red balloon into the middle of the road. Her mother screamed from the sidewalk, "Emma, stop!" The little girl froze. At that exact moment, a black SUV came speeding toward the intersection. Its tires screeched across the wet road, but it wasn't slowing down. People shouted in panic. Some covered their eyes. Without thinking, William ran. He reached the little girl just seconds before the SUV. Wrapping one arm around her, he pushed her toward the safety of the sidewalk. The child landed safely in her mother's arms. William wasn't as lucky. The speeding SUV slammed into him with tremendous force. His body was thrown across the rain-soaked road before crashing onto the pavement. The umbrella rolled away. Rain mixed with the blood beneath him. The entire street fell silent. Someone called an ambulance. Others rushed to help. William struggled to keep his eyes open. Everything around him became blurry. Then, he heard someone shouting his name. William. A black luxury sedan stopped in the middle of the road. Chloe jumped out before the driver could even open the door. Ignoring the rain soaking her clothes, she ran toward him. She dropped to her knees beside him and gently lifted his head into her lap. "William." Her voice trembled. It was the first time anyone had ever seen the famous Ice Queen lose control. "Please, stay with me." William looked at her through blurred vision. For the first time in 3 years, he saw fear in Chloe's eyes, and tears. A weak smile appeared on his face. "So, you do care." A tear rolled down Chloe's cheek. "Don't talk. The ambulance is coming. You're going to be all right." William wanted to tell her not to cry. He wanted to wipe away her tears. But his body refused to move. His eyes slowly closed. The last thing he felt was Chloe holding his hand tighter than ever before. Across the street, inside another black SUV, a man lowered a pair of binoculars. He watched as the ambulance drove away. His expression remained cold. He picked up his phone. The target survived. There was a brief silence before a deep voice replied. "Then we'll make sure he doesn't survive the second time." The call ended. The man started the engine and disappeared into the rain. Neither William nor Chloe knew. The accident had never been an accident. It was the beginning of a deadly game, and William had just become its first target. Chapter 2. William slowly opened his eyes. The bright lights above him felt blinding. A constant beeping echoed through the hospital room. His entire body ached, especially his head. He tried to move, but a sharp pain shot through his shoulder. You shouldn't move. A doctor stepped beside the bed and smiled. You're lucky to be alive, Mr. Carter. William looked around the room in confusion. What happened? You were involved in a serious traffic accident. You've been unconscious for nearly 12 hours. William nodded weakly. Fragments of the accident flashed through his mind. The little girl, the speeding SUV, Chloe's tearful face. Then, he remembered something else. Just outside his room, two unfamiliar voices. The hit should have killed him. We'll finish the job if he remembers anything. William's heartbeat quickened. It wasn't just an accident. Someone wanted him dead. The doctor continued examining him. You suffered a concussion. Fortunately, the surgery went well. However, he paused before adding, patients with head injuries sometimes experience temporary memory loss. Memory loss. The words echoed in William's mind. Suddenly, an idea crossed his mind. If the people behind the accident believed he had forgotten everything, they might stop watching him, and sooner or later, they would expose themselves. William took a slow breath. He had made his decision. A few minutes later, the doctor returned with two nurses. Mr. Carter, he said kindly, I'm going to ask you a few simple questions. William nodded. Can you tell me your name? William stared blankly at him. He frowned. I'm sorry. I don't remember. The doctor exchanged worried glances with the nurses. What about today's date? William slowly shook his head. I don't know. Do you know where you are? He looked around the room. A hospital? Yes. Do you remember why you're here? Again, William shook his head. The doctor sighed. It appears the accident has affected his memory. He instructed one of the nurses. Please call Mrs. Hart. Only minutes later, the hospital room door slowly opened. Chloe walked inside. She looked exhausted. Her usually perfect appearance had disappeared. Her hair was slightly messy. Dark circles surrounded her eyes. It looked as though she hadn't slept since the accident. William looked at her with deliberately confused eyes. The silence between them felt endless. Finally, he spoke. Excuse me, do I know you? The question hit Chloe like a knife. She stood frozen. Her lips trembled slightly. After a long pause, she forced a gentle smile. She struggled to continue. I'm your wife. William blinked in surprise. My wife. Chloe nodded. We've been married for 3 years. William lowered his eyes. I'm sorry. I don't remember anything. For the first time since anyone had known her, the famous Ice Queen couldn't hide her emotions. A single tear rolled down her cheek. She quickly wiped it away before William could notice. Or at least, she thought he hadn't noticed. The doctor quietly explained William's condition. He remembers basic skills. He can speak normally, but the memories connected to his personal life appear to be gone. There's no way to predict if, or when, they'll return. Chloe listened silently. Is there anything I can do? The doctor smiled. Be patient. Don't pressure him. Sometimes familiar people and places help bring memories back. Chloe nodded. I understand. Later that evening, the room had grown quiet. William lay awake, pretending to sleep. He heard Chloe speaking softly near the window. I know you've always been stronger than me. So please, come back. Her voice cracked. William slowly opened his eyes just enough to see her. She wasn't speaking to anyone else. She was speaking to him. The woman who had spent 3 years keeping her distance was now quietly praying for him to remember. William felt a sharp pain in his chest. Not from the accident, from guilt. He had never imagined seeing this side of Chloe. And now, he had to lie to her every single day. Suddenly, a soft knock echoed outside the room. A nurse entered. Mrs. Hart, you have an important board meeting tomorrow morning. You should get some rest. Chloe shook her head. I'm staying. You've been here all day. I'm staying. The nurse smiled helplessly before leaving. William closed his eyes again. He remembered every night Chloe had returned home late from work. Every dinner they ate in silence. Every anniversary she had quietly ignored. Now, she refused to leave his side. Was this really the same woman? Or had she been hiding her feelings all along? Far away, inside a luxurious office overlooking the city, a man sat in darkness. Only his hands could be seen. One of his men entered and bowed respectfully. Sir, our source inside the hospital confirmed it. He doesn't remember anything. The man remained silent for a few seconds. Then, a faint smile appeared on his face. Excellent. Then he's no longer a threat. He slowly stood and looked out over the city lights. But just to be safe, he spoke coldly. Keep watching him. And if his memory ever returns, his eyes turned icy. Make sure it disappears forever. Chapter 3. The next morning, soft sunlight streamed through the hospital window. William slowly opened his eyes. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then the pain in his body reminded him of the accident. He carefully turned his head. Chloe was asleep in the chair beside his bed. Her laptop lay open on the table, surrounded by company files. She had fallen asleep while working. William quietly watched her. In 3 years of marriage, he had never seen her this close for so long. A loose strand of hair rested across her face. Without thinking, he almost reached out to move it aside. But he stopped himself. He couldn't forget. He was supposed to be a man who remembered nothing. A few minutes later, Chloe slowly opened her eyes. The first thing she did wasn't check her phone. It wasn't opening her laptop. It was looking at William. "Good morning," she said softly. William smiled politely. "Good morning. You must be Chloe." A faint sadness crossed her face. "Yes, I'm Chloe." She stood up and picked up a paper bag from the table. "I brought breakfast." William looked surprised. "For me?" She nodded. "The doctor said you shouldn't skip meals." She carefully placed the food on the table and opened the containers. Warm porridge, fresh fruit, a cup of coffee. William looked at the simple meal and smiled. "It smells wonderful." "I'm glad." For the first time, their conversation didn't feel awkward. It felt peaceful. As William slowly ate breakfast, Chloe watched quietly. Finally, he asked, "Were we happy?" The spoon in Chloe's hand stopped moving. She didn't know how to answer. After a long silence, she smiled faintly. "We tried." William looked down. "So, I wasn't a very good husband?" Chloe immediately shook her head. "No, you were." She stopped herself. "You were kind." William looked at her. "And you?" She forced a smile. "I was always busy." That was all she could say. She couldn't tell him how many nights she had chosen work over dinner. How many times she had returned home after midnight to find him asleep on the sofa, waiting for her. Or how she secretly watched him every morning before leaving for the office. Those were mistakes she could never erase. A cheerful nurse entered the room. She smiled the moment she saw Chloe. "Mrs. Hart, I'm surprised you're still here." Chloe looked confused. "What do you mean? You haven't left his bedside since he was admitted. You even canceled 3 board meetings." William looked at Chloe in surprise. "You did?" The nurse laughed. She barely slept. Every time Mr. Carter's condition changed, she was the first person asking the doctors if he was all right. Chloe quickly interrupted. "That's enough." The nurse realized she had said too much. "I'm sorry." She smiled awkwardly before leaving the room. Silence returned. William looked at Chloe. "I thought you said you were always busy." She lowered her eyes. "I was. So why stay now?" Chloe didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked out the window. "Because I almost lost you." The room became completely silent. Those 4 words carried more emotion than anything she had said during their entire marriage. William felt his heart tighten. If only she had said them before the accident, everything might have been different. That afternoon, the doctor entered the room with William's latest test results. "Your recovery is going well. If everything continues like this, you can go home in a few days." William nodded. "Home?" The doctor smiled. "Hart Manor." William looked toward Chloe. "Our home." She gave a small nod. "Yes." William smiled awkwardly. "I hope it doesn't feel strange." Chloe looked at him for a moment. "It won't." Then, after a brief pause, she quietly added, "I'll help you remember." William lowered his eyes. "I'm counting on you." That evening, Chloe stepped out of the room to answer an urgent business call. As soon as the door closed, another visitor entered. A well-dressed man, carrying an expensive bouquet. He smiled warmly. "William, it's good to see you awake." William looked at him with confusion. "I'm sorry. Do I know you?" The man's smile froze for a split second. Then he quickly recovered. "I'm Marcus, Chloe's cousin. We're practically family." William smiled apologetically. "I wish I remembered." Marcus placed the flowers beside the bed. "I'm sure your memory will return soon." Although his voice sounded friendly, his eyes carefully studied William's every expression, looking for any sign that he was pretending. But William remained calm, completely convincing. Marcus finally smiled. "Get well soon. I'll visit again." As he walked out of the room, his expression immediately turned cold. He took out his phone and made a call. "It's me." There was silence on the other end. Marcus spoke quietly. "I tested him. He really doesn't remember." A deep voice answered. "Good." Then moved to the next phase. Marcus looked back toward William's hospital room. A cruel smile slowly spread across his face. This time, he won't be so lucky. At that very moment, William happened to glance through the small window in the door. He couldn't hear the conversation, but he saw Marcus smiling, and for some reason, that smile made him feel far more uneasy than the accident itself. Chapter 4. 3 days later, William was finally discharged from the hospital. The doctors were pleased with his recovery. "Your injuries will heal with time," the neurologist said. "As for your memory, don't force it. If it returns, it will return naturally." William nodded with a polite smile. "I understand." Only he knew his memories had never disappeared. Outside the hospital, a black Rolls-Royce waited at the entrance. The chauffeur quickly opened the rear door. Before William could pick up his small travel bag, Chloe reached for it. "I'll carry it." William looked surprised. "It's all right. It's not heavy. I know, but I'll carry it. The chauffeur stared in disbelief. He had worked for the Hart family for years and had never seen Chloe carry anyone's luggage, not even her own. The drive back to Hart Manor was quiet. William looked out the window, pretending to admire the city. So, he asked with an innocent smile, is this where we've lived? For 3 years, Chloe replied. Do you like living there? She glanced at him. You used to. William chuckled softly. I hope I will again. For the first time, a small smile appeared on Chloe's face. It disappeared almost as quickly as it came, but William noticed it. He had waited 3 years to see that smile. Now, he finally had. As the car passed through the grand gates of Hart Manor, William looked around in amazement. The mansion stood proudly at the top of a hill, surrounded by beautiful gardens and fountains. It's beautiful. Chloe nodded. Welcome home. The words were simple, yet they sounded warmer than ever before. The front doors opened before they reached the entrance. The household staff stood in 2 neat rows. Mrs. Wilson, the elderly housekeeper, stepped forward with tears in her eyes. Welcome home, young master. William smiled politely. I am sorry. I wish I remembered everyone. Mrs. Wilson gently patted his arm. Memories can return, but kindness never leaves. The servants all smiled. Watching them, William realized something. During the past 3 years, he hadn't just been Chloe's husband. He had quietly become part of everyone's family. Later that afternoon, William wandered through the mansion, pretending to explore it for the first time. He paused in front of a grand piano in the living room. His fingers lightly touched the keys. It feels familiar, he whispered. Chloe, who had been standing nearby, looked at him. You used to play every evening. I did. She nodded. You said music made the house feel less empty. William smiled sadly. I wish I could remember. Chloe lowered her eyes. So do I. That evening, William walked into the kitchen to get a glass of water. To his surprise, he found Chloe standing in front of the stove. She was wearing an apron. A cookbook lay open on the counter. Several eggshells were scattered across the table. She looked completely lost. William blinked. Are you cooking? Chloe looked slightly embarrassed. I want to try. William couldn't hide a smile. For me, she hesitated before quietly nodding. I thought, if your memory comes back, it might help if something feels familiar. William's heart skipped a beat. Before he could answer, a loud hiss came from the frying pan. Smoke quickly filled the kitchen. The smoke alarm began ringing throughout the mansion. Within seconds, several servants rushed inside. Mrs. Wilson quickly turned off the stove while another maid opened the windows. Everyone stood frozen. No one had ever seen Chloe Hart in an apron. Mrs. Wilson smiled warmly. Madam, I think we should leave the cooking to the professionals. Chloe looked embarrassed. I suppose you're right. William couldn't help laughing. I'm sorry. I've just never imagined the great CO struggling with scrambled eggs. For a moment, Chloe looked at him. Then, she laughed. It was soft, quiet, but real. The entire kitchen fell silent. The servants stared in disbelief. It was the first time they had heard Chloe laugh in years. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, William stood on the balcony outside his bedroom. The cool night air felt peaceful. He looked up at the stars and smiled. Maybe, just maybe, the accident had changed more than his life. It had changed Chloe too. But as he turned to go back inside, something caught his attention. Near the flower garden below, a shadow quickly disappeared behind the trees. William frowned. Who's there? No answer. The garden became silent once again. Far beyond the mansion walls, a man lowered his binoculars. He spoke quietly into a radio. Target has returned home. A cold voice replied. Good. Keep watching him. The next move begins tonight. William had no idea. Someone was already watching his every move. And Hart Manor was no longer a safe place. Chapter 5. The next morning, William woke earlier than everyone else. The mansion was quiet. For a moment, he almost forgot about the accident. Then he remembered. Someone had tried to kill him. Someone was still watching him. And somewhere inside the Hart family, there was an enemy hiding in plain sight. After getting dressed, William walked downstairs. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the dining room. To his surprise, Chloe was already there. Breakfast had been prepared, not by the chef, but by Chloe. The toast was slightly burnt. The eggs weren't perfectly cooked. Even the coffee looked stronger than usual. William smiled. You made all this? Chloe looked a little embarrassed. I asked the chef to teach me. William sat down and took a bite. It tastes great. She raised an eyebrow. You're lying. I'm not. The toast is burnt. William laughed. Maybe, but it's the first breakfast my wife has ever made for me. So, it's perfect. For the first time, Chloe didn't look away. She simply smiled. A real smile. Watching from the kitchen, Mrs. Wilson quietly wiped a tear from her eye. For years, she had hoped to see this day. After breakfast, Chloe stood to leave for the office. She picked up her handbag before stopping at the door. I'll be home early tonight. William looked surprised. You don't have to rush because of me. I know. She hesitated for a moment. I want to. Without another word, she walked outside. William stood there, watching her car disappear. 3 years. She had never once promised to come home early. Until now. Later that afternoon, William decided to take a walk through the gardens. As he passed beneath his bedroom balcony, something caught his attention. Fresh footprints. The soil had been watered that morning, yet someone had clearly walked there during the night. William slowly crouched down. His eyes followed the footprints until they stopped directly beneath his balcony. He reached under the stone ledge. His fingers touched something cold. Carefully, he pulled it out. A tiny electronic device. No larger than a coin. A green light blinked every few seconds. William's face turned serious. A listening device. Someone had planted it while everyone was asleep. Instead of destroying it, he slipped it into his pocket. If they think I'm still being watched, they'll make mistakes. That evening, Chloe returned exactly as she had promised. For once, she wasn't carrying work home with her. She placed her phone on the table and switched it off. William looked surprised. No late meetings? She shook her head. I canceled them. Why? She looked at him. I've already missed enough time. William didn't know what to say. The woman sitting across from him was nothing like the Chloe he had known before the accident. After dinner, they walked through the gardens together. The cool evening breeze made the flowers sway gently. William noticed Chloe rubbing her arms. You must be cold. Before she could answer, he removed his jacket and placed it over her shoulders. She looked at him in surprise. You remembered? William froze. For a split second, he realized his mistake. What do you mean? You used to do this every time we walked outside. William smiled awkwardly. I guess. My body remembers things my mind doesn't. Chloe nodded slowly. The doctor said that might happen. William allowed a quiet sigh of relief. He had almost exposed himself. Later that night, William returned to his room. He took the listening device from his pocket and carefully examined it. There was a tiny silver symbol engraved on the back. A falcon. He frowned. What does this mean? Just then, his phone vibrated. It was a message from his younger brother, Liam. I heard about the accident. Are you okay? William quickly replied. I'm alive. But I need your help. A few seconds later, Liam responded. Tell me where and when. William smiled. At last, he had someone he could trust. Miles away, inside a dark office, several computer monitors suddenly went silent. One of the technicians frowned. We've lost the audio. Marcus, who was standing nearby, looked up. What happened? The listening device stopped transmitting. Marcus narrowed his eyes. Did someone find it? The technician shook his head. It still shows as active, but we can't hear anything. Marcus slowly clenched his fist. Interesting. He looked toward the city lights outside the window. It seems our little victim is smarter than we expected. Far away at Hart Manor, William looked out from his bedroom balcony. He didn't know who was behind the accident. He didn't know why they wanted him dead. But one thing was certain. The game had already begun. And this time, he wasn't going to be the prey. Chapter 6. The following morning, William was awakened by the sound of rain tapping gently against his bedroom window. His injuries were healing quickly, but his mind refused to rest. Someone had tried to kill him. Someone had planted a listening device outside his room. And somewhere inside Hart Group, an enemy was patiently waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike again. But for now, William had to keep playing the role of a man who remembered nothing. After getting dressed, he walked downstairs. The dining room was unusually quiet. Mrs. Wilson looked worried. Good morning, young master. Where's Chloe? William asked. Mrs. Wilson sighed. Madam has a fever. She worked until nearly 3 o'clock this morning. William frowned. Is she still working? Mrs. Wilson nodded helplessly. She refused to cancel today's online meeting. Without another word, William walked upstairs. He gently knocked on Chloe's bedroom door. Come in. Her voice sounded weak. William stepped inside. Chloe was sitting on her bed with a laptop open in front of her. Even with a fever, she was discussing company reports. We'll finalize the project tomorrow. She ended the meeting and closed the laptop. You should be resting, William said. I'm fine. You don't look fine. She smiled faintly. I've worked through worse. William walked closer and placed the back of his hand against her forehead. Chloe froze. His hand felt cool against her warm skin. You definitely have a fever. She looked at him with surprise. You knew how to check. William smiled awkwardly. I guess some things stay in my body, even if my mind forgets. Chloe lowered her eyes. Maybe. A few minutes later, William returned carrying a bowl of warm soup and a glass of water. I asked Mrs. Wilson to prepare this. You should eat before taking your medicine. Chloe looked at him silently. For years, no one had ever taken care of her. People admired her success. They respected her authority. But no one ever asked whether she had eaten. Except William. She quietly accepted the bowl. Thank you. William smiled. You've said thank you more times this week than the last 3 years. The words slipped out before he realized what he had said. His heart skipped a beat. Had he made a mistake? Fortunately, Chloe only smiled sadly. I suppose I have. That afternoon, Chloe finally fell asleep. William quietly left the room and wandered into the library. As he browsed the shelves, he noticed an old photo album. Curious, he opened it. Most of the photographs were from company events. Then, he reached a picture from their wedding. William stood beside Chloe, smiling warmly. Chloe looked beautiful in her wedding dress, but she wasn't smiling. William sighed. So we really weren't close. Just then, Mrs. Wilson entered the library. She noticed the photo in William's hands. Young master, there is something you should know. William looked up. What is it? Mrs. Wilson smiled gently. Every year on your birthday, Madam personally baked a cake. William looked confused. But I don't remember ever seeing one. You didn't. Because every year, she threw it away. William frowned. What? Mrs. Wilson's eyes filled with sadness. She could never make it perfect, so she refused to let you see it. William stood speechless. All those years, Chloe had been trying, quietly, without anyone knowing. That evening, the rain finally stopped. William found Chloe sitting alone in the garden. She looked much better. He sat beside her. Neither of them spoke for several minutes. Finally, Chloe broke the silence. Do you think people deserve a second chance? William looked at her. Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is whether they're willing to change. Chloe smiled faintly. I hope that's true. William looked at the flowers swaying in the breeze. It is. He wasn't talking about people in general. He was talking about her. Just then, a security guard hurried into the garden. Madam, we caught someone outside the east gate. Chloe immediately stood. Who? He was hiding in the bushes with a camera. William and Chloe rushed toward the front gate. A man in a black jacket was being held by two guards. The camera around his neck was filled with photographs. Every picture was of William, his bedroom, the garden, the balcony. Someone had been watching him for days. Chloe's expression turned ice cold. Who sent you? The man remained silent. She took one step closer. I asked you a question. The stranger suddenly smiled. Then, to everyone's shock, he bit down on something hidden inside his mouth. Within seconds, he collapsed to the ground. The guards immediately called for an ambulance. But it was too late. He was dead. William stared at the scene in disbelief. The man had chosen death, rather than reveal who hired him. As the police arrived, William noticed something sticking out of the man's pocket. A small silver pin, shaped like a falcon. William quietly slipped it into his pocket before anyone else noticed. The mystery had just become even darker. Who was the silver falcon, and how many people belonged to it? One thing was certain. This wasn't the work of a single killer. It was an organization, and William had just become its next target. Chapter 7. The death of the mysterious photographer became the biggest news of the week. The police ruled it a suicide, but William knew better. The man hadn't chosen death. He had been trained for it. Whoever the Silver Falcon organization was, they never left witnesses behind. For the next few days, Hart Manor was placed under heavy security. More guards patrolled the gates. New security cameras were installed around the property. Chloe personally approved every change. Yet despite all the extra protection, William noticed something strange. Every time he walked through the garden, he had the feeling that someone was still watching him. The enemy hadn't disappeared. They had simply become more careful. One rainy afternoon, William wandered into the mansion's library. He was hoping that familiar surroundings might help him maintain the illusion that he was trying to recover his memories. As he searched through the shelves, he noticed a small wooden box hidden behind a row of books. Curious, he picked it up. The box wasn't locked. Inside were several old envelopes tied together with a blue ribbon. Every envelope had the same name written on it. William. His heart skipped a beat. They had never been mailed. Slowly, he opened the first one. William, today was our first wedding anniversary. I wanted to eat dinner with you, but I couldn't bring myself to come home early. I'm sorry. William quietly opened the second letter. You waited for me again tonight. I saw you asleep on the sofa. I wanted to cover you with a blanket, but I was afraid you would wake up. The third, the fourth, the fifth. Every letter was written by Chloe. Every letter was an apology. She had never stopped noticing him. She had simply never found the courage to tell him how she felt. At the bottom of the final letter, one sentence caught William's attention. If I ever lose you, I'll never forgive myself. William slowly closed his eyes. His chest tightened. For 3 years, he believed Chloe had never loved him. Now he realized she had loved him in silence. William, he quickly looked up. Chloe was standing at the library door. She smiled softly. There you are. William immediately closed the wooden box. I was just looking around. Chloe walked inside. Her eyes landed on the box in his hands. For a brief moment, she looked nervous. You found those. William nodded. I didn't read them. He lied. They looked personal. Chloe quietly took the box from him. Thank you. She held it close to her chest. I never meant for anyone to see them. William smiled gently. I guess everyone has secrets. She looked into his eyes. So do you. For a second, William felt as if Chloe could see through him. But she simply smiled and changed the subject. Dinner is almost ready. That evening, the atmosphere at the dining table felt different. Instead of sitting at opposite ends, Chloe sat beside William. Mrs. Wilson noticed immediately. A warm smile spread across her face. Without saying a word, she quietly served dinner before leaving them alone. As they ate, Chloe suddenly asked, "If your memories never return, would you be afraid?" William thought for a moment. "I don't think so." "Why?" "Because." He looked at her with a warm smile. "I think I'm meeting the best version of you." Chloe's cheeks turned slightly pink. She quickly looked down at her plate to hide her smile. Just then, a servant rushed into the dining room. "Madam, Mr. Marcus has arrived." A few seconds later, Marcus walked inside, carrying an expensive gift basket. He smiled warmly. "I hope I'm not interrupting dinner." Chloe remained polite. "What brings you here?" Marcus placed the basket on the table. "I wanted to check on William." He looked toward William. "How are you feeling?" William smiled. "A little better every day." Marcus nodded. "Any memories?" William shook his head. "I'm afraid not." Marcus stared at him for several seconds. Then he smiled. "That's unfortunate. But maybe—" He leaned slightly closer. "Some memories are better left forgotten." William felt a chill run down his spine. The words sounded casual, but they felt like a warning. Late that night, Marcus sat alone inside his car outside Hart Manor. He picked up his phone. "It's me." The mysterious voice answered immediately. "Report." Marcus looked toward the brightly lit mansion. "He's becoming closer to Chloe." There was a brief silence. Then the voice replied coldly. "Then we can wait no longer." Marcus frowned. "What do you mean?" "The next phase begins tomorrow. No more tests. No more warnings. This time, we're taking Chloe too." Marcus looked up sharply. "Are you sure?" The voice answered without emotion. William was always the target. But now, Chloe has become a problem. The call ended. Marcus slowly lowered his phone. For the first time, even he looked uneasy. Whatever was about to happen, it would change everything. And neither William nor Chloe had any idea that the real nightmare was about to begin. Chapter 8. The following morning, Hart Manor was unusually quiet. After the unsettling visit from Marcus, neither William nor Chloe had slept well. Yet neither of them mentioned it. Instead, they pretended everything was normal. As they finished breakfast, Chloe picked up her briefcase. "I have an important shareholders meeting today." William smiled. "Don't work too hard." She hesitated. "I'll try." Just before leaving, she turned around. "I'll be home for dinner." William nodded. "I'll be waiting." For the first time in 3 years, she left the mansion with a smile. An hour later, William sat alone in the garden, replaying Marcus's strange words in his mind. Some memories are better left forgotten. They didn't sound like a joke. It sounded like a threat. Just then, his phone vibrated. It was Liam. "I traced the silver falcon symbol," Liam said. "What did you find?" "It isn't a company logo. It's the emblem of a secret group operating inside Hart Group." William's expression hardened. "Who leads them?" "I don't know, but they're connected to several suspicious deaths over the last 5 years." Before Liam could continue, the call suddenly disconnected. William looked at his phone. No signal. The entire network had gone down. A bad feeling settled in his chest. At the same moment, Chloe's car was traveling toward Hart Group headquarters. Halfway there, 3 black SUVs suddenly surrounded her vehicle. The driver slammed on the brakes. "What are they doing?" Before anyone could react, masked men jumped out of the SUVs. The bodyguards stepped forward to protect Chloe. Gunshots echoed across the empty road. Within seconds, the guards were overwhelmed. One of the attackers smashed the driver's window and pulled Chloe from the car. She struggled fiercely. "Let me go." The leader removed a small syringe from his pocket. "You've become an inconvenience." Before Chloe could escape, the needle pierced her arm. Within seconds, her vision became blurry. The last thing she saw was one of the attackers speaking into a radio. "The package is secured." Then, everything went black. Back at Hart Manor, William's phone finally regained its signal. It rang immediately. Unknown number. He answered without hesitation. "Hello." A deep, unfamiliar voice spoke. "If you ever want to see your wife alive again, come alone." William's face turned pale. "What have you done?" A short laugh echoed through the phone. "We've only borrowed her. You have 2 hours. If you bring the police, you'll receive her body instead." The call ended. William stood frozen. His hands trembled. Then another message arrived. It contained a photograph. Chloe, unconscious, tied to a chair inside an abandoned warehouse. Below the image, only one address. William immediately called Liam. "They took Chloe." "What?" "They kidnapped her." "I'm coming with you." "No." William's voice became firm. "They told me to come alone." Liam fell silent. "Brother, it's a trap." "I know, but I can't leave her." He ended the call before Liam could argue. 1 hour later, William arrived at the abandoned warehouse. Rain poured heavily from the dark sky. The massive building looked deserted. He slowly pushed open the rusted metal door. The warehouse was completely silent. "Chloe." His voice echoed through the darkness. No answer. He stepped farther inside. Suddenly, the light switched on. More than a dozen masked men emerged from the shadows. Standing at the center of the room was Chloe, still tied to a chair. Her wrists were bound. A bruise marked her forehead. She slowly opened her eyes. "William, what are you doing here?" William smiled gently. "I told you, I'd always come home to you." The leader of the masked men began clapping. "How touching." He stepped forward, his face still hidden behind a black mask. "I must admit, I didn't think you'd come." William looked directly at him. "What do you want?" The man chuckled. "You." He raised a pistol. "The game is over, William Carter. But before you die, I have one question." He took another step closer. His voice turned cold. "Do you really think we believed you lost your memory?" William's heart skipped a beat. For the first time, he realized his greatest secret might already have been exposed. Chapter 9. William's heart pounded. The masked man's question echoed through the warehouse. "Do you really think we believed you lost your memory?" For a brief moment, silence filled the room. William forced himself to remain calm. "I don't know what you're talking about." The masked man laughed. "You've always been a terrible liar." He slowly walked toward William. "From the day you woke up in the hospital, we've been watching every move you made." William's expression didn't change. "If you knew I was pretending, why wait until now?" The man smiled beneath his mask. "Because you led us exactly where we wanted." William frowned. "What does that mean?" The masked man pointed toward Chloe. "We want to know whether she would choose her company or you." He chuckled. "And she chose you." William looked at Chloe. She was still tied to the chair, desperately trying to free herself. "William, don't listen to him." The masked man raised his gun. "I wasn't talking to you." One of the kidnappers tightened the ropes around Chloe's wrists. William instinctively took a step forward. "Let her go." The leader shook his head. "No, you'll make a trade. Your life for hers." Without hesitation, William answered. "Phoenix." The entire warehouse fell silent. Even the kidnappers exchanged surprised glances. The masked man narrowed his eyes. "You agreed too quickly." William smiled faintly. "I made a promise. I'll always protect my wife." Chloe's eyes filled with tears. "No. William, don't. You don't have to save me." William looked at her and smiled. 3 years ago, I promised to stay by your side. I intend to keep that promise." For the first time, Chloe completely broke down. She had spent 3 years hiding her feelings. 3 years pretending she didn't care. And now, the man she loved was willing to die for her. The masked leader slowly lowered his weapon. "Interesting." He looked toward his men. "Untie Mrs. Hart." The kidnappers hesitated. "But sir," I said, "untie her." Within seconds, Chloe's hands were free. She immediately ran toward William. Without thinking, she threw her arms around him. William froze. So did everyone else. It was the first time since their marriage that Chloe had ever hugged him. She held him tightly, as though letting go would mean losing him forever. "I'm sorry," she whispered through her tears. "I'm so sorry." William gently placed a hand on her back. "It's all right." "No." She shook her head. "I spent 3 years pushing you away. I thought keeping my distance would protect you. But I was wrong." William looked at her in surprise. "So you knew someone wanted to hurt me?" Chloe slowly nodded. "My grandfather warned me years ago. He believed someone inside Hart Group wanted control of the company. He told me the people closest to me would become targets. So I pretended not to love you. I thought if no one knew how much you meant to me, you'd be safe." William closed his eyes. Everything finally made sense. She had never been cold. She had been terrified. The masked leader began clapping slowly. "What a beautiful confession." He looked at Chloe. "Unfortunately, you figured out too late." He raised his hand. "Take them both." The kidnappers rushed forward. At that exact moment, the warehouse doors burst open. "Police! Nobody move!" Several armed officers stormed inside. Behind them, Liam entered with a determined look on his face. "I told you I wasn't letting you come alone." Chaos erupted. The kidnappers scattered in every direction. Some tried to escape through the back exit. Others exchanged fire with the police. The masked leader cursed under his breath. "This isn't over." He threw a smoke grenade onto the floor. Thick gray smoke instantly filled the warehouse. William covered Chloe and pulled her close. When the smoke finally cleared, the masked leader was gone. So were several of his men. Only abandoned weapons remained. Outside the warehouse, ambulances treated the injured. Chloe sat quietly beside William. She hadn't let go of his hand since they left the building. Liam approached them. "We searched the warehouse. Most of them escaped, but we found this." He handed William a small silver badge. Engraved on it was the familiar falcon. On the back were 3 words: "Property of Hart Group." William looked toward Chloe, then at the badge. The enemy wasn't hiding outside the company anymore. They were already inside it, and someone at the very top was helping them. Chapter 10. 2 days after the warehouse attack, Hart Manor was under constant police protection. Security guards stood at every entrance. Reporters crowded outside the gates, desperate to learn why the country's most powerful CEO had nearly been kidnapped. Inside the mansion, the atmosphere was unusually peaceful. Chloe had canceled all non-essential meetings. For the first time since William could remember, she chose her husband over her work. That morning, William found Chloe standing alone in the garden. She was quietly watering the white lilies. "You've never done that before," William said with a smile. Chloe looked at him. "I know. I never realized how beautiful they were." She paused. "I never realized how many things I was missing." William walked over and stood beside her. "You're here now. That's enough." Chloe smiled. "I hope you'll still think that after you learn the truth." William frowned. "What truth?" She hesitated. "My grandfather left something for me before he died. He said I should only open it if the Hart family was ever in danger." William's eyes widened. "You still have it?" She nodded. "It's in the company vault." Before they could say anything else, Liam hurried into the garden, carrying his laptop. "I found something." William immediately became serious. "What is it?" "I recovered security footage from the day of your accident. You need to see this." A few minutes later, the three gathered in William's study. Liam played the video. It showed the busy intersection where William had been hit. Everything looked exactly as William remembered. The little girl, the speeding SUV, the crowd. Then Liam paused the footage. "Look at the traffic light." William leaned closer. "It was green." Liam nodded. "For the SUV. So why didn't it stop?" He zoomed in on another camera angle. A second black sedan appeared just before the accident. It briefly blocked the SUV driver's view. Then, it deliberately swerved away at the last second. William's expression darkened. "The SUV wasn't trying to hit the little girl." Liam nodded. "It was trying to hit you." Chloe covered her mouth. "The child. She was only a distraction." The room fell silent. William replayed the footage several times. Then something caught his attention. "Pause." Liam froze the image. The second black sedan was reflected in a nearby shop window. Its license plate was partially visible. Only 4 digits could be read. 7,184. Liam immediately began typing. "Give me a minute." Within seconds, his expression changed. "I found it." William looked up. "Who owns the car?" Liam swallowed hard. "The vehicle is registered to Hart Group." Chloe couldn't believe it. "That's impossible." Liam turned the laptop toward them. "The registration is real. But it gets worse. The vehicle is assigned to..." He stopped speaking. William frowned. "Assigned to who?" Liam slowly looked at Chloe. "The Executive Security Office. The same department responsible for protecting the Hart family." Chloe stood up immediately. "No, I personally approved every department head. There has to be a mistake." William gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's not your fault." She shook her head. "My own company. My own security team. They've been hunting you." For the first time, William saw guilt replace Chloe's usual confidence. Just then, Mrs. Wilson hurried into the study. "Madam, there's a visitor." "Who?" "He says his name is Daniel Reed." Liam looked confused. "I've never heard of him." Mrs. Wilson continued. "He claims he used to work for Hart Group Security." William and Chloe exchanged glances. "Bring him in," William said. A few moments later, an elderly man entered the room. He walked with the help of a cane. His face was marked by old scars. He looked directly at William. "I've been searching for you." William frowned. "Do I know you?" The old man shook his head. "No, but your father saved my life 20 years ago." He reached into his coat and removed a sealed envelope. "I promised him, if anything ever happened to his son, I would deliver this." William slowly accepted the envelope. Across the front, 5 words were written in neat handwriting. "Open only when betrayed." William looked at the envelope, then at the old man. His instincts told him whatever was inside would change everything. Chapter 11. The study fell completely silent. William stared at the envelope in his hands. Across the front, 5 words were written in faded black ink. "Open only when betrayed." He looked at the elderly man. "You knew my father?" The old man nodded. "My name is Daniel Reed. I served as head of security for Hart Group many years ago. Your father once saved my life. I owed him a debt I could never repay." William carefully broke the seal. Inside, there was a handwritten letter and a small brass key. William unfolded the letter. The handwriting belonged to his late father. "William, if you're reading this, it means the people I feared have finally made their move. Never believe the danger comes from outside the Hart family. The greatest enemies always stand closest to power. Trust your heart. Protect Chloe. And whatever happens, don't let them control Hart Group. The key belongs to your grandfather's safety deposit box. Everything you need to expose the truth is inside." William slowly lowered the letter. His father had known. Years before the accident, he had already discovered that someone was planning to seize Hart Group. Chloe looked at the brass key. "My grandfather's safety deposit box. I completely forgot about it." Daniel Reed nodded. "Your grandfather never trusted anyone. He believed one day the company would face its greatest crisis. So he prepared for it. William looked at Chloe. Where's the box? At National Trust Bank. Only the chairman of the Hart family can access it. She paused. Or my husband. William looked surprised. My husband. Chloe gave a small smile. My grandfather changed the authorization after our marriage. For some reason, he trusted you. Just then, Liam's phone rang. He answered immediately. A few seconds later, his expression changed. William, what happened? The police just identified one of the men arrested at the warehouse. And he worked for Hart Group Security. Everyone exchanged uneasy glance. Daniel Reed let out a heavy sigh. I was afraid of this. The corruption runs deeper than we thought. Later that afternoon, William and Chloe left for the bank together. 2 police vehicles escorted them through the city. Neither of them noticed. A black sedan following from a distance. Inside the car, Marcus quietly watched the convoy. He picked up his phone. They're going to the bank. The mysterious voice replied calmly. So, they found the key. Marcus tightened his grip on the steering wheel. Should we stop them? No. A brief silence followed. Then the voice said, let them open the box. Marcus looked confused. Why? Because what's inside will bring them exactly where I want them. The call ended. Marcus frowned. For the first time, even he didn't understand the mastermind's plan. An hour later, William and Chloe entered the bank's private vault. After several security checks, the manager led them to an old safety deposit box. This box hasn't been opened in over 15 years, he explained. William inserted the brass key. Click. The lock opened. Inside, there were only 3 items. A leather-bound notebook, a USB flash drive, and a sealed envelope marked for William and Chloe. Together, William slowly picked up the envelope. Before he could open it, the bank manager's phone began ringing nonstop. Moments later, a security guard rushed into the vault. Sir, what's wrong? The police just called. There's been an explosion. At Hart Group headquarters. Chloe's face turned pale. What? The executive floor has been completely destroyed. William immediately grabbed the envelope and the USB drive. Without another word, he and Chloe rushed out of the vault. Neither of them realized. The explosion wasn't meant to destroy the building. It was meant to keep them away from it. Because while everyone rushed to Hart Group headquarters, someone else was already searching William and Chloe's mansion. And this time, the intruder wasn't looking for money. He was looking for the truth. Chapter 12. Police sirens echoed across the city as William and Chloe rushed toward Hart Group headquarters. Black smoke rose into the sky. Employees crowded outside the building in panic. Fortunately, the explosion had happened after the executive floor had been evacuated. No one had been killed, but the entire floor, including Chloe's office, had been destroyed. William looked around the scene. This wasn't an attack. Chloe turned to him. What do you mean? If they wanted to hurt people, they would have chosen a different time. He looked back at the damaged building. They wanted everyone out of the mansion. Chloe's eyes widened. Hart Manor. Without another word, they jumped back into the car. When they arrived at Hart Manor, the front gate had been forced open. Several security guards were unconscious. The police were already searching the property. Mrs. Wilson rushed toward Chloe in tears. Madam, thank goodness you're safe. Chloe grabbed her hands. What happened? A group of masked men broke into the mansion. They searched every room. William frowned. Did they steal anything? Mrs. Wilson slowly shook her head. No, they weren't interested in money. They only searched your study. William and Chloe exchanged worried glances. The mastermind knew they had found new evidence. William hurried upstairs. His study was in complete disarray. Books covered the floor. Drawers had been emptied. The safe had been forced open. But one thing immediately caught his attention. The wooden box containing Chloe's unsent letters was untouched. The intruders had ignored it completely. William smiled faintly. They never found what they were looking for. Chloe looked confused. What do you mean? William carefully picked up the leather notebook from a bank. I think they were looking for this. The 3 of them, William, Chloe, and Liam, locked themselves inside the study. William opened the notebook. It had belonged to Chloe's grandfather. Most of the pages contained business notes. Then, near the middle, one sentence made everyone freeze. If anything happens to me, never trust the chairman of executive security. Liam looked up. The chairman. That's Victor Kane. Chloe frowned. He has worked for our family for 20 years. Daniel Reed slowly shook his head. That's exactly why no one ever suspected him. William turned another page. There were copies of bank transfers, secret contracts, names of executives, dates stretching back almost 15 years. Everything pointed to one person, Victor Kane. He had secretly built the Silver Falcon organization from inside Hart Group. Chloe couldn't believe what she was reading. He was with my grandfather. He attended my parents' funeral. He watched me grow up. William gently took her hand. Sometimes, the people we trust the most hide the darkest secrets. Just then, Liam plugged the USB drive from the bank into his laptop. A single video file appeared. He clicked play. The screen came to life. An elderly man appeared. It was Chloe's grandfather. He looked directly into the camera. If you're watching this, then I've already lost. He took a deep breath. The person trying to steal Heart Group is someone sitting beside me every day. His name is Victor Kane. The room fell completely silent. I gathered enough evidence to expose him. But I know he won't let me live long enough. William, the old man's voice softened. If Chloe has trusted you enough to watch this together, then protect her. She has always carried the weight of this family alone. Don't let her carry it anymore. The video ended. Tears rolled down Chloe's face. Her grandfather had trusted William from the very beginning. Suddenly, every light inside Hart Manor went out. The entire mansion was plunged into darkness. Liam looked at the window. The power's been cut. A loud voice echoed from outside. William Carter, you have something that belongs to me. William slowly walked toward the balcony. Standing at the front gate, surrounded by dozens of armed men, was Victor Kane. For the first time, the mastermind had finally revealed himself. He removed his gloves and looked directly at William. A calm smile spread across his face. No more games. Bring me the notebook and a USB drive, or Hart Manor burns to the ground. William looked at Chloe, then back at Victor. He smiled. I've been waiting to meet you. The final battle had finally begun. Chapter 13. Hart Manor was surrounded. More than 20 armed men stood behind Victor Kane. Police officers had already formed a perimeter, but none of them dared move. Victor calmly held a remote control in his hand. I've placed explosives around the estate, he said. If anyone fires a shot, this mansion becomes your grave. A heavy silence fell over the courtyard. Chloe's face turned pale. William stepped forward. What do you want? Victor smiled. The notebook, the USB drive, and your life. William glanced at Chloe before quietly handing the notebook to Liam. Take Chloe inside. Chloe immediately grabbed his arm. No, I'm not leaving you. William looked in her eyes. Trust me. For a moment. She didn't move. Then she slowly nodded. For the first time in their marriage, she trusted him completely. William walked toward the front gate alone. Victor watched him with amusement. I underestimated you. I thought pretending to lose your memory would make you weak. William smiled calmly. It made you careless. Victor's smile disappeared. What do you mean? William reached into his pocket and removed his small voice recorder. You spent weeks threatening me, following me, and confessing more than you realized. Victor laughed. A recording won't save you. William shook his head. No, but this will. At that moment, dozens of television screens inside news vans parked outside Hart Manor suddenly came to life. So did the mobile phones of every police officer. Liam's voice echoed through the speakers. Broadcast connected. Victor's eyes widened. What have you done? William smiled. My brother has been recording everything. Not just today. For weeks. Liam had secretly recovered security footage, phone calls, and financial records linking Victor Kane to the Silver Falcon organization. Every piece of evidence was now being uploaded to police headquarters and several national news agencies. Victor looked at one of his men. Stop the transmission. The man checked his phone in panic. We can't. It's already been sent. For the first time, Victor lost his composure. He pointed his gun at William. You think this changes anything? William didn't move. It changes everything. You've already lost. Police sirens grew louder. More vehicles arrived from every direction. An officer stepped forward holding an arrest warrant. Victor Kane, drop your weapon. You're under arrest for conspiracy, attempted murder, kidnapping, corruption, and organized crime. Victor slowly laughed. So this is how it ends. William shook his head. No, you ended it yourself. Desperate, Victor grabbed Chloe, who had just stepped outside the mansion. He pressed the gun against her head. Everyone back. I'll kill her. William's heart stopped. Victor, let her go. Victor smiled wildly. You should have handed me the evidence. William took a slow step forward. No, I should have protected her sooner. Chloe looked at William through tear-filled eyes. Don't. Victor tightened his grip. One more step, and she dies. William suddenly noticed something. Victor was standing directly in front of the mansion's marble fountain. The ground beneath him was wet from the evening rain. William remembered. Victor had dropped the remote control earlier. It was lying only a few feet away. Without warning, William picked up a loose stone from the driveway and threw it toward the fountain. The stone struck the marble. The loud crash startled Victor for a split second. His attention shifted. That single second was enough. Chloe drove her elbow backward into Victor's ribs. His grip loosened. William sprinted forward. He tackled Victor to the ground. The gun slid across the pavement. Police officers rushed in. Within seconds, Victor Kane was pinned to the ground in handcuffs. The leader of the Silver Falcon had finally fallen. As officers led Victor away, he looked back at William. This isn't over. William smiled peacefully. No, it is. Victor lowered his head. For the first time, the man who had manipulated everyone for years had nothing left to say. The nightmare was finally over. But one truth still remained. William turned toward Chloe. There was one secret he could no longer keep. The truth about his fake amnesia. Chapter 14. 3 days later, the Silver Falcon organization had completely collapsed. Victor Kane and his closest associates were in police custody. News channels across the country called it the biggest corporate conspiracy in Hart Group's history. For the first time in years, the Hart family was finally free. Yet inside Hart Manor, William found no peace. There was still one truth he hadn't told Chloe. A truth only he knew. Every smile, every conversation, every moment since the accident had been built on a lie. That evening, the mansion was unusually quiet. Chloe stood alone in the garden, watering the white lilies. William slowly walked toward her. "Can we talk?" She smiled gently. Of course. They sat together on the wooden bench beneath the old oak tree. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, William broke the silence. "There's something I need to tell you." Chloe looked at him. "What is it?" William took a deep breath. "My memory. It never disappeared." The watering can slipped from Chloe's hands. Water spilled across the flowers. She stared at William, unable to believe what she had just heard. "What did you say?" William lowered his head. "I remembered everything. From the moment I woke up in the hospital." Silence. Complete silence. Chloe slowly stood. "So, you knew who I was?" William nodded. "Yes." "You remembered our marriage?" "Yes." "You remembered me?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Every single day." Tears slowly filled Chloe's eyes. "Then why? Why did you lie to me?" William closed his eyes. "The day I woke up, I overheard 2 men outside my hospital room. They said the accident wasn't an accident. They planned to kill me. They also said, if I remembered anything, they would finish the job. I pretended to lose my memory, so they would believe I wasn't a threat." Chloe stood motionless. Every piece of the puzzle finally fit together. The strange questions, the careful answers, the moments he almost slipped. It all made sense. "But why didn't you tell me?" she asked softly. William looked into her tear-filled eyes. "Because I was afraid. Afraid that if you knew, you become their next target." Chloe gave a bitter smile. "I already was." William couldn't argue. She was right. She had suffered because of his decision. "I hated lying to you." William continued. "Every time you smiled, I wanted to tell you the truth. Every time you took care of me, I felt guilty. But if I had told you, Victor would have known. I couldn't risk losing you." A tear rolled down Chloe's cheek. "You should have trusted me." "I know, and that's the biggest mistake I've ever made." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The evening breeze gently moved the white lilies around them. Finally, Chloe stepped closer. William expected anger, maybe even hatred. Instead, she gently held his hand. "I am angry," she admitted. "Very angry." William nodded. "I know, but..." She smiled through her tears. "I also know why you did it. You were trying to protect me." William looked at her in surprise. "I'm sorry." Chloe shook her head. "No, I'm the one who should apologize. For 3 years, I pushed you away. I thought pretending not to love you would keep you safe. But all I did was hurt the man who loved me the most." William gently squeezed her hand. "The past is over. What matters is what we do from now on." Chloe took one step closer, then another, until only a few inches separated them. She looked directly into William's eyes. "There's one more thing." William smiled. "What is it?" For the first time since their wedding day, Chloe said the words she had hidden in her heart for years. "I love you." William stood completely still. He had dreamed of hearing those words countless times. Now, they finally felt real. He smiled warmly. "I've loved you since the day I married you." Chloe laughed softly through her tears. Then she wrapped her arms around him. This time, there were no secrets, no lies, no walls between them. Only 2 people who had finally found their way back to each other. As they embraced beneath the evening sky, Mrs. Wilson quietly watched from the mansion window. She smiled and whispered, "It's about time." Neither William nor Chloe noticed. Liam had quietly taken a photo of the moment. A new beginning, one they had both waited 3 years to see. Tomorrow, their final chapter would begin, not as strangers, but as husband and wife. Chapter 15. 6 months later, Hart Group had never been stronger. After Victor Kane's arrest, every member of the Silver Falcon organization was brought to justice. The company introduced new leadership, stricter security measures, and complete transparency. For the first time in years, Hart Group was no longer ruled by fear. It was built on trust. Life at Hart Manor had changed just as much. Every morning, William and Chloe prepared breakfast together. Sometimes the toast was still burnt. Sometimes the coffee was too strong. But neither of them cared. Those imperfect mornings had become their favorite part of the day. Mrs. Wilson often laughed as she watched them argue over simple recipes. "This kitchen has never been so noisy," she would say with a smile. "And I've never been happier." One sunny afternoon, William stood in the garden, trimming the white lilies. Chloe quietly walked up behind him. "You always take care of these flowers." William smiled. They remind me of second chances. Chloe slipped her hand into his. They remind me of you. William looked at her and laughed. You become quite romantic. She smiled mischievously. I had 3 years to practice. A few days later, Hart Group held its annual shareholders meeting. This time, instead of discussing profits and investments, Chloe made a surprising announcement. Standing before hundreds of employees, she said, "Success means nothing if you lose the people who matter most." She looked toward William, who stood quietly at the back of the hall. I spent years believing that carrying every burden alone made me strong. I was wrong. True strength is trusting the people who stand beside you. The audience applauded. Many employees smiled as they watched William. They finally understood why the woman known as the Ice Queen had changed. It wasn't because of power. It was because of love. That evening, William and Chloe returned to Hart Manor. As they walked through the front door, Mrs. Wilson handed William a small velvet box. It was delivered this morning. There wasn't a sender. William looked at Chloe. Should we be worried? She smiled. After everything we've been through, I think we can handle one little box. William opened it carefully. Inside lay the simple silver bracelet he had once given Chloe on their 3rd wedding anniversary. The same bracelet she had refused to accept. Beneath it was a small handwritten note. Some gifts are worth waiting for. William looked at Chloe in surprise. She smiled shyly. I asked Mrs. Wilson to keep it safe. I couldn't wear it back then. I was afraid someone would see how much it meant to me. She gently picked up the bracelet and held out her wrist. Will you put it on for me? William fastened the bracelet around her wrist. This time, she didn't take it off. As the sun began to set, the two of them stood together on the balcony overlooking the gardens. The same place where William had once stood alone, wondering if Chloe would ever love him. She rested her head on his shoulder. Can I ask you something? Anything. She smiled. If you really had lost your memory, do you think you would have fallen in love with me again? William looked at her for a moment. Then he laughed softly. I don't think I would have had a choice. Why not? Because. He gently held her hand. No matter how many times I forgot the past, I'd always find my way back to you. Tears filled Chloe's eyes. This time, they were tears of happiness. She leaned forward and kissed him. Not because of contract, not because of duty, but because she loved him. As the evening breeze carried the scent of white lilies through the garden, William smiled. The accident had nearly taken his life. Instead, it had given them both something they thought they had lost forever. A second chance. And this time, neither of them intended to waste it.